Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the eXp Tactical Real Estate Training. My name is Brett Swartz. I'm with Brent Silverbauer, where every single week we are dedicated to practicing, teaching, and coaching on how we grow our business, some of the challenges we're facing, the things that are happening in the marketplace. And our goal is to do two things. Number one, sharpen our skill set together. Number two, hopefully encourage and inspire you with all of your practice. Because guess what? The people who are the best and the elite in their industry are practicing, or they are role playing. They are sharing and sharpening their skills. They have accountability partners. And so that's what we're practicing right now. Also getting on video as well, which can be a little bit uncomfortable at times. But the good news is we're here today to do just that. If you want to learn more about us, you go to expmaster.com. You can also go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, Brent Silverbauer, he is a multifamily and a real estate expert realtor out of Chico in all of Northern California. Brent, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
All right. And so, Brent, what would you say is the number one biggest roadblock that's holding to where you're trying to go right now and where you're at with your real estate business?
Yeah. So prospecting, essentially, gaining new clients. And then, and I'll say twofold, gaining the clients. And then right now in the atmosphere that we are in with rising rates and everything, selling the property, pricing it right, getting the seller on board with this new market and the objections that, well, this guy sold it 6 months ago at this or a year ago at that. And so I want that other market in this current market.
Okay, got it. So prospecting plus either managing sellers' expectations or helping them to re-identify what the reality is with pricing as it pertains to the change of the marketplace and the disconnect between the buyer and the seller. Is that a fair summary?
Yep.
Okay. And so we practiced in the past mirroring and labeling, right? And so the first question for you is, how are you mirroring and labeling when you're having these discussions with your clients about price expectations? What does that look like? Would you like to role play that?
Sure, we can role play that. Yeah.
Okay, you want to be the seller, or do you want to be the broker?
Sure, I'll be the seller.
Okay, great. So Brent, it really feels like the marketplace is telling us through lack of offers, lack of showings, that perhaps we're priced a little bit more aggressively than maybe we had thought of just even a few months ago. But I'm curious, what are you feeling and seeing right now?
Well, yeah, then let's just take it off the market and not sell it.
So it sounds like taking it off the market and not selling it would be something that you would want to do.
Yeah, if it's not selling, yeah. I mean, I don't need to sell. I don't have to sell. I'd like to sell, but we'll just keep it going and no problem.
So when we first started the process, there seemed to be some kind of need or want or goal there. What's changed between then and now?
Well, I can't get my exit price. I wanted to get out of California. I wanted to move my money to a better market, a growing market. I see the oversupply in our town. I think it is going to affect vacancy rate, but if I can't sell it for what I want, then what's the point?
So it sounds like the purpose in the beginning was to get out of California and to get out of all of the high concentration in the one town. Where do you think not selling is going to go at this point? I'm just trying to connect the two. Or in other words, let's back up again. What was the goal to get out of California, or the goal to get out of the small town?
Well, in our town currently, we have a lot of new multifamily, a lot of new supply. Our local university is going down in attendance. I feel like the population is not, as strong in a growth than it used to be. And we wanted to go into a growing market, obviously. But with the way the rates are, we have a long-term 7 years left on 4.7%. So it's cash flowing now. We could just hold it and raise the rents. And I think that, if we can't get our price, you said we can get 11 million, and, we haven't gotten that. You haven't brought us that buyer, and it looks like we can't do it.
So it sounds like the macro and the micro conditions, the macro being the marketplace itself, the student housing, those challenges maybe aren't outweighing the micro in the sense of where you want to be for finances. Is that a fair summary? Plus, you have the interest rate of 4.7%, which long-term fixed rate is pretty good given where the market is going with interest rates. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. I mean, it's cash flows now. We don't have to do much. We'd like to get out of state. We'd like to go in another market, but it just doesn't look like it's feasible at this time.
So here's my thought, Brent. This is the perfect reason to be a buyer, right? For all the things that you're saying right now, because of this transition that we're in right now. We actually believe that the marketplace will be some of the best buying opportunities in the next 6 to 12 months. Given, and let's also bring in some of the stats here, right? You have quite a bit of equity in the property, right? Yeah, you do have good debt, but knowing what you know now, Brent, would you take that same amount of equity and buy the property in the scenario you're selling in Chico and buy that same property? If you had that, is that position you would go into? In other words, just taking a step back, like it feels like if you had that same equity, you wouldn't go into your position with the student housing challenges and everything else, but maybe I'm missing something.
Well, when we look at the scenario, if I were able to get 4.7% debt and get a cap rate of 4.5% on a brand new multifamily, I don't know. It's a possibility. We're looking at getting another 4.5 cap rate property, or 4 cap, or 3.5 cap in these nicer markets. But we're going to be paying 7% on the rate, and those numbers, we have to get our price to go in 50% down. We got to get 50% equity out, and that's why we're just kind of changing our minds.
Yeah, that's making some sense. It sounds like the 4.7% versus the 7% interest rate, and then you also have maybe the similar cap rate. I'm curious, do you think the valuations for some will change? Because what we're seeing is cap rates that are expiring. Sounds like you have a longer term fixed rate debt, which is good, but imagine yours is expiring in 6 or 12 months, or even 3 months, and you have to sell. Does it seem like then you'd want to be that buyer? Because guess what? You can perhaps get even a higher cap rate, a 5.5, a 6.5, a 7 cap. I mean, what happens if that is the scenario that you find yourself in? Would that make more sense?
It would make more sense, but what we're seeing is the cap rates are still relatively lower, and these sellers, they feel a lot like us in that they don't have to sell. We're not quite seeing the distress right now. And frankly, I feel like when we see the distress, our cap rate's going to be 6%. And so, with all those scenarios, that's why we feel like we're changing our mind. I'm not seeing brand new construction at a 5.5 cap in a good market.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you're saying there. I think the big thing would be, what's the long-term 1, 3, 5, 10 years, right? And if we're moving into a different market cycle and the changing environment with interest rates and valuations, in long term, this is where you want to be, right? Given the other conditions with the challenges with student housing, then yeah, you're right. If those don't outweigh one another, then I do see what you're saying. Perhaps it is best to hold on to the property and not to sell, and not try to go for opportunity that's going to be for some people that are in distress. I think some of the positives that you're in right now is you're not in distress. You don't have to sell, and you can be patient. And so maybe it is something that we are waiting for someone to buy the property at the opportune time, and still find another property that makes sense. And perhaps we take a lower price if you could find the deal. So I guess maybe let's bridge that gap. Let's imagine that prices are not 11 million, they are 10, but you can find a deal that normally would have cost 11, but you can get it at 9.5, right? So I'm wondering, are the two correlating? In other words, if we can find a great deal on the buy side for less price as more pain comes into the marketplace, would you be willing to accept a little bit lower price? Or how does that work in your mind?
I think so. The key thing is going to be the cash flow and going to have enough equity. We owe 6 million on this one. So if we sell at 11, we got 5 million coming out. So we're about 60%, let's just say, for rough numbers, 60%, loan to value. But if we go down to 10, then we're at 70%. If we go down to 9.5, then we're at 75%. And those numbers, to make something work, you got to put 50% down, 40% down in this current market, because the cap rates and the interest rates are inverted. So as that price goes down, we have to 1031 exchange into a bigger or equal property. That's where the rub comes in.
So what is your cash flow? I'm curious. And then what is your cash flow goals?
Yeah.
And the last thing is, when the debt does reset or fluctuates, what will that do to your cash flow goals?
Well, our cash flow is $7,000 a month, roughly, depending on when taxes are. And our debt doesn't reset for 7 years. So, as it is now, and our rents are under market.
Okay, so just to clarify, 7,000 a month, which is about 84,000 a year, divided by about 5 million of equity, that's about 2%. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah.
Okay, so that 2%. So if you could find something that was greater than 2% cash on cash, or does it need to be 4%? Does it need to be 5%? What is the delta between? And I know this is not always apples to apples. I mean, if it's newer property, right? Turnkey property, maybe doesn't have the challenges with declining students in a kind of student housing environment marketplace. So have you set that goal for what it would actually make sense to sell and buy? Is it the same, or is it greater by 1 or 2 or 3%?
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2. It all depends on the deal. But yeah, and that's the problem, is that nothing's cash flowing on day one. If I put 25% down and I have a 7% rate and I buy a 5 cap, I'm going to have to put 50% down to cash flow, because it's a lot of negative cash flow out there. If I'm putting 25-30% down, it just doesn't pencil.
Yeah, it feels like the numbers have to make sense on both sides, right? But in particular, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying as long as we can get equal or greater cash flow, or maybe a little bit higher, things being relative with the deal, of course, in the marketplace, that you would be willing to sell at a lower price in order to buy at a better cash on cash return, if that's your number one goal. Or am I missing something?
No, it's a long-term game, but yeah, and we would love to have something with upside, and we wouldn't mind taking on a little bit of a project if we're rewarded for it.
Okay. I mean, so I think that's the key. I don't think the answer is to necessarily lower the price right now. I don't think it's necessarily to accept change pricing expectations. I do think it is finding that buy side deal which accomplishes your goals, which you talked about, which is increasing cash flow. And it might mean that the good news is you do have a 7-year run rate for your fixed rate debt, and most other sellers that I'm aware of, not most, but there's a good amount that don't have that. And in fact, they didn't buy rate caps, or the rate caps are expiring, which means their 4.7 is going to adjust to 7 or 7.5% soon, right? We know these are coming. And so the opportunity to buy these opportunities will be here. My only main question and concern would be if and when we find that deal, that we have the ability to execute it on it, in a quick time frame before it's taken by somebody else. And this is always the dilemma with the 1031 exchange, which is part of a few. I have a thing here which breaks down some objections. Let's see if I can pull up the objections here. So I want to find my Uplake property first, which is really what we're saying here. And I'm wondering, are you willing to not take the deal, the buy side deal, in order, if we find it, in order to make sure you preserve the price? Which one's more important to you? Missing out on the opportunity for more upside versus staying at the status quo and making about 2% on your money? I know there's always going to be risk involved with the 1031 exchanges, but I'm just trying to gauge, are you more risk adverse, rather just stay at 2%, 7,000 a month, versus potentially buying within a marketplace that might not be around for very long. I mean, we might have 6 or 12 months of this, and then the interest rates could go back down, of which now you're competing with more buyers. I mean, in other words, it's not a perfect scenario, but I'm just trying to gauge, like, what's the most important thing to you?
Well, we don't want to lose cash flow going in on day one to another property. So if you run the numbers and we sell it, say we sell it at 9 million, okay, and then we have 3 million coming out or so. If we can find a $9 or $10 million deal that we can put 30% down and it cash flow more than what we're selling it for, then I think that makes sense. That's fine. It's the problem is that deal doesn't exist, and it's a massive risk to sell without, because that deal is kind of a unicorn right now. And everyone wants that deal, and everyone wants to get out of there. There's a lot of distress. We're not a distressed person, but there's a lot of distressed people who are itching for a 1031 exchange deal like that.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like the pain's not big enough for you guys. You guys are happy with the 7,000. I mean, not happy, but maybe you're satisfied enough for 7,000 a month versus taking on massive amount of debt, paying for a property that's, could be in a what you know now versus where you're going into, let alone the capital gains tax that you'd have to face. Am I missing that, or is that all a fair summary?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, there's no pain on our side. It was just, when we listed it, it's like, okay, well, we could get into a new market, this and that. And I think at the time, maybe we had a shot, but it seems as though that shot has gone away as the interest rates have gone up about 1%, 1.5%.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think you thought through this. And so then, unless there's something outside force that's pressuring you, they either two options are you just hold at your price. We continue to have it listed to see if we have a buyer come along who's in a 1031 who's desperate enough to pay the higher price that you're willing to go with. What's 10.5 or 11 million, whatever that is, and then B, try to find that property that still makes sense. All it takes is one buyer, and I'm willing to be patient. I've worked on deals for months and months and months, years to make it make sense. So as long as you're willing to be patient and see if we can find that, but I do think there's going to be more opportunities on the buy side coming up. I do think the pain is really starting to be felt by others, and I think we do need to be patient. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you're right. I think you're exactly right.
Yeah. Okay.
It just hasn't hit yet.
Yeah, here's some other things too, right? So I haven't found my uplake first. So how much time will you need is a good question to ask. Are you concerned that there will be a limited selection of available uplake properties? That's exactly what you said. When you need them, let me show you the current inventory and demonstrate there'll be available properties when you're ready. But you have been showing inventory. You have been making offers. You have been flying to Bend, Oregon to tour properties and try to put deals together, and you're not seeing them, right? Counter arguments too, unless your property is sold, your offers may not be attractive to sellers. Sellers won't want to be tied up while you try to sell your property. So the downside of not meeting the market is that you're not going to be in the position to swing and hit the ball with and when a property does come up, because sellers aren't going to want to wait around for you, because guess what? They might have that buy side up as well. So as long as you're aware of that, Mr. Seller, if buyers see that your next purchase is dependent on them, they may take advantage of that negotiating leverage. They may ask for concessions. You risk forfeiting your deposit on your uplake if you're unable to sell your property during the escrow period. Here are some solutions. Our purchase agreement is designed to provide additional identification periods. We can build in additional options for you to extend escrow. And this is more so to try to win the listing. In this scenario, Brent, you've already won the listing, but this could also be for extending the listing, because your listing might expire in 6 months. And so you want to be able to extend the listings, like winning it for the second time. You might want to have some things to build into the new, the updated listing agreement, right? That helps everybody win-win. So those are some thoughts. What thoughts or feedback do you have, Brent?
No, I think, yeah, you're exactly right. It's just a matter of the market shifting and these guys not being motivated. This is my own personal situation right now. And the numbers have just changed. And this getting rid of your debt at 4.7% is a massive risk right now.
Yeah, I think there's three things. There's cash flow, there's tax flow, and there's debt flow, right? And for the longest time, we took debt flow for granted. It was just so attractive, so low. It was just, flowing. It was flowing great. It was fixed. It's fantastic. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have operational challenges with real estate. We don't have occupancy challenges with real estate necessarily, at least right now. What we have is debt challenges, right? And the debt can poison the deal. Bad debt can poison a good deal. All it takes is a little bit of poison to mess up the whole deal. And that's the challenge, is debt is now become less attractive. Therefore, it's not as attractive to sell if you're in a good debt situation. And if you're going to buy, you got to make sense of the price, which goes back into the cash flow. And so we are in a transitional period in the marketplace, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But that's why, as a professional, you want to come alongside and understand the need. You understand the emotional drivers behind the need, and then link yourself as a solution to help that, which is, I'm going to continue to pound the pavement to find deals, list opportunities, open up marketplaces for you, provide solutions, alternatives to the 1031 exchanges to solve those challenges so that you can truly get time back on your side. Because what we're seeing right now is time is being constrained with these three factors. But until you can get time out of the equation, you're going to be stuck in this game of debt flow, cash flow, and tax flow, all within this 1031, little bubble. And that bubble is being, popped right now. And that's the challenge. And so, that's why we offer capital gains tax solutions, so you don't have to be stuck in that bubble. Any thoughts on that, Brent?
No, yeah, no, I totally get it. We went over this with those guys, and they, for whatever reason, didn't want to do the DST, and they wanted either the traditional route or liquidate. But that all depends on the price, and sadly, I just think they missed the market.
Yeah. And so, people make decisions. All you can provide is provide options and solutions and let them make a decision. And so, who knows where it'll go. By the way, people want to learn more about that or any of this, we're talking about expmastery.com. You can also go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can end that biggest frustration with capital gains tax on 1031s and eliminate the 1031 forever. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. So Brent, we have just a couple minutes left. You also mentioned prospecting. Okay. So prospecting, time blocking. So what do you feel like the biggest roadblock to hold you back to that is, or what do you mean by that when you say those are some of your challenges right now?
Well, just being busy with other things, basically, doing tours on properties and, other things, working with buyers who, they're not, the interest rates that are rough. So, but it's just, not prioritizing my schedule, but scheduling my priorities. And just setting aside time every day and just making calls. That's it. And then dealing with all the busy work, all the stuff that comes at me, all the problems, all the issues, later in the afternoon.
It sounds like you're putting out fires and you're letting the day run you versus you running the day.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's the one thing you could do, you think, that could change that?
Yeah, just do the prospecting, just mark it in my calendar, stick to it, turn my phone on silent, and just go for it.
Okay. So what will you do this week?
Schedule and block that time out in the morning and do 2 hours of prospecting a day.
Okay, great. So did you put it in your calendar and lock it in?
Yep.
And the next week, going to come back, you're going to say, that's what I did every morning?
Yep.
That's it. It's an accountability there. We'll hold you to it, Brent. Hey, Brent, it was a great session here. We'll let you get to it since it's top of the hour. Everybody, right. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you gained some value here, some inspiration. Go make some great things happen for yourself, for your clients, for your family. So appreciate everybody. We'll talk to you again.